go to Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live co-host and contributor to Football Night in America. Oh, look who has got a Kiss coffee cup.
I've got it all. Not all of it. Not the coffin yet. But, yeah, I was a member of the Kiss Army. I spent the $5. I had the badge. I had all the stuff. When you're 10, 11 years old, mid-70s, turn on the Paul Lynde Halloween special on ABC at 8 p.m. Eastern on a Friday night, and these guys come out with the fire and the brimstone and the explosions. You don't care about the quality of music. You just, this is awesome. There's nothing else like it. The music grows on you after about 20 years. The music isn't great. The experience is what's great.
I agree. I agree with that. Did you ever see Kiss in concert?
9 times. The best one was in 1996 when they reunited and they put the makeup back on. I went up to Pittsburgh to see them with a good friend of mine, and it was like 20 years it just disappeared. They could still move. Like I saw them a few years ago, and they're having a little trouble getting around the stage, you know. But in 96 they could still actually move in those giant shoes, and it was like seeing them in the 70s. So I saw them several times in the 70s. Several times since then. I went to their most recent farewell tour because they've been on a farewell tour for the last 20 years. And it really is tough to watch now, but it was magical back in the 90s and back in the 70s and 80s.
Did you wear the makeup?
No. Well, one time. Halloween 1978, my sister put the Catman Peter Criss makeup on me for trick or treat.
All right. That's all I wanted to talk to you about, Mike.
That's good. I got plenty of Kiss stuff. Hey, Kiss is indirectly to blame for ProFootballTalk.com, because 21 years ago, when I was trying to figure out what I'm going to do in this business, I remembered what I heard Paul Stanley say early in the existence of Kiss. They created the show that they would pay money to go see. And that's such a simple message to anyone who's in any type of service business. Make the thing, whatever it is, that you would be a customer of. Make it the way that you would want it if you were the one deciding where you're going to spend your time. And there's brilliance to that, and it worked. Music wasn't great, but it worked over the past 50 years.
We're talking to Mike Florio, Pro Football Talk Live co-host with Chris Sims. That precedes us on Peacock. Before I get to the Commanders-Giants Terry McLaurin controversy here, I was talking about Sean McVay. And I was wondering if he can see enough in Baker Mayfield over the next couple of weeks here that he would go, you know what, he's worth staying around for. Maybe that's my future here, depending on what happens with Matthew Stafford. And then I wondered, you know, the TV business had a big reset here in the offseason, Mike, with all of these jobs being filled up and everybody getting their money, that I wonder if Sean McVay has an opening here where he'd go, this is a soft landing right now, because I don't want to stick around for this rebuild with the Rams. Your thoughts?
Well, the question, Dan, is how long until they can rebuild? How long are the debts going to be paid for the Super Bowl that they won last year? Hey, horrible season this year. Your first-round pick goes to Detroit as the last piece of the Matthew Stafford for Jared Goff swap. So you don't even get that. So they've got cap issues. They've got veteran contracts that are bloated. They don't have draft picks. They don't have a nucleus of young players that would be coming into their prime right now because they traded away all those first-round picks. They haven't used a first-round pick since the year they selected Jared Goff, and they ultimately gave up a first-round pick to get his awful contract off the books as part of that Stafford trade. So it could take years for the Rams to turn it around. And you're right. McVay has to be thinking, number one, did I miss my chance with Amazon last year? Number two, is there another opportunity out there now? I mean, I don't know, Dan. Is a network going to tear up and eat one of these $15, $20 million contracts? Are they going to wedge him into the booth with Al Michaels and Kirk Herbstreit? I could see Amazon maybe doing that, going with a three-man booth. So if I'm Sean McVay, I really wonder whether I did the right thing when I had the chance to jump. I wonder how long it's going to take to turn this team around, and maybe now is the time to walk away and then come back, 10, 15 years from now.
All right, the Terry McLaurin situation here with the Commanders. What did you see on that play?
Well, I saw what we see at every level of football. Anyone who's paid any amount of attention to what happens out on the sidelines, you see the receiver go out, communicate with the official who's on that that line of scrimmage, and there's that back and forth, whether it's verbal or whether it's hand gestures or nodding or shaking to get properly lined up. I saw Terry McLaurin believing that he was getting guidance from the official who was there. I saw the official acting in a way as if he was communicating back to Terry McLaurin. But then all of a sudden, you see the official. It's kind of like the guy who's out at the OK Corral and he's getting ready for the gunfight. He's got his hand on the gun. He's ready to pull it. He puts his hand on his flag like, I'm going to get you. I'm going to get you. And it's just a bad look. I know that John Hussey, the referee, said after the game, there's no obligation on the part of the official to tell. But you surely can't mislead the player. It's one thing to say nothing. It's another thing to lead him to believe that you're okay. I'd love to hear what was said between the two men, if anything, but it just is a bad look when you consider there aren't many ways that one official can affect the outcome of a game. But when you throw that flag away from the action that takes a touchdown off the board in crunch time, that's a bad look for the NFL. And that was a moment, Dan, where I said, maybe they do need to worry about a potential Tim Donaghy situation at some point. I'm not saying it's happening now, but that just shows you there are ways that one person can really affect the outcome of a game.
I would think with all of these sidelines mic'd up, somebody, and, two huge media cities here playing one another, that would be, we would have some kind of dialogue there that's on tape.
Well, who would have it? Who would have custody of it?
The NFL. The
Exactly.
NFL films, yes.
Just like the audio between Myles Garrett and Mason Rudolph that never came to light. That was very controversial about what Mason Rudolph may have said or not said before he was whacked over the head with his own helmet. That audio never came to light, even though audio is everywhere.
Yeah.
There are microphones everywhere. Yeah, there's probably audio and we'll probably never hear it.
I'm wondering about Jalen Hurts. He's not playing, it looks like. Gardner Minshew is going to get the start. And is Jalen Hurts going to lose the MVP because he's not playing in the next two games, perhaps?
Well, I don't think it helps him because as of right now, and the way that this award goes, the quarterbacks of the two number one seeds are the two most likely candidates at the end of the day, unless somebody does something crazy statistically, like if Justin Jefferson ends up with 2,000 or more yards and the Vikings are the 2 seed, then maybe you have to consider him. But it's either going to be Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, or Joe Burrow, depending upon which team in the AFC is the 1 seed, or Jalen Hurts. So if Jalen Hurts is out, as the AFC race for the 1 seed comes to a crescendo, and we're going to see something spectacular from Allen or Mahomes or Burrow, it's going to be hard for Hurts to get enough votes when the dust settles if he hasn't played at the end of the regular season. And why play him? They're one game away, one win or a loss by the Vikings or 49ers or Cowboys from clinching the 1 seed. Why take a chance? They can win with Gardner Minshew. So, yeah, I think it's going to cost him the MVP. Not that he cares about it. I think he cares about winning the Super Bowl. But, a lot of people care about the MVP, and I think he's fallen out of the race if he doesn't play.
But how much of this do you think is the story that you can tell, broadcasters, writers, about the MVP? That we love the story. We've taken Mahomes for granted now. He's graduated into that, he's like the Greek freak in the NBA. Like, okay, nice story. Now we move on there. How much is what we get, the story behind that we haven't heard?
Well, it's so odd because it is subjective. There are 50 different individuals who will have their vote. For the first time, it's not one vote per person. You put in 5 names and they get ranked almost like the Heisman. So it's at least going to get people some discussion and consideration. Russell Wilson would have had an MVP vote by now if they had this system in place back when he was, playing well. I didn't mean to take a shot at Russell Wilson, but we're just stating the obvious.
Yes, of course.
But I think it's become this pattern where it's a quarterback of one of the top seeds. That's just how it shakes out because the voting happens when? Immediately after the regular season ends. As we know what the playoff tree looks like, we know who's earned the bye. We have a certain amount of heightened respect for the quarterback of the team that has emerged from this morass of competitors to be the number 1 seed. Unless somebody does something statistically crazy, like Adrian Peterson 10 years ago, when he almost broke the single season rushing record and took it away from Peyton Manning when Manning was the odds-on MVP. That's the kind of thing that does it. Otherwise, it's quarterback, 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 quarterback. It just fits better. And there's no guidelines. There's no rules. It's just kind of how it goes.
I was wondering about this last week that we have NBA, we've changed the trophies and we've named them after, great players, former great players. And if the NFL did this, the MVP, could you name it the Peyton Manning MVP? The Super Bowl MVP would be the Tom Brady Award.
Well, it's already the Pete Rozelle Award, I think. See, the problem with naming things, what do you do 100 years from now? Or 200 years from now? I always worry about that. Like, what are they going to do when they have 10,000 busts in the Hall of Fame? Like at some point, retired jerseys. I'm big on that. Like, at some point, like, who's this jersey retired for? Somebody that nobody who is currently living can even remember. I don't like naming the awards unless it truly is somebody that is going to be remembered 500 years from now.
I'm not worried about that because I won't be around to worry about that, Mike. Come on.
Like, what's going to happen with all the garbage? It doesn't matter. We'll be dead.
Okay. Should Peter Criss be able to wear his Kiss makeup when he dies?
Oh, gosh. I don't think he'd want to, but that really would be something. I wonder if Gene Simmons and Paul Stanley, who have become so inextricably intertwined with their personas, will choose to be buried in their makeup. That's the real question.
Oh, Gene Simmons, I would imagine, right? I would think he and Paul Stanley would both be buried in their makeup.
I think Gene Simmons will finagle it so whatever mausoleum he's in will, once every hour just have a giant fireball explode at the top of it for eternity.
Thank you, Mike. Great to talk to you.
Happy holidays, Dan.
Thank you, Mike. Mike Florio, you too. Pro Football Talk Live.